Good morning. My name is not Laura Lesh, as it says in your order of service. Laura's home with the flu, so I'm Ellen Bartley, and I will be pinch hitting this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. I'm happy to be your worship associate this morning, presenting this service along with Barbara Coley and members of the Racial Concerns Committee. We're thankful for our musicians this morning, Claudia Jacobs, Dan Weymouth, Tom Pelletier, Peter Winkler, and Dee Dee Cook, who always lift our spirits with their gift of music. Thanks also to our tech team, Linda Cortese and Rich Hall, who enable us to bring our worship to those at home. Deborah Little is our Director of Religious Education, and she will be happy to speak with you about our religious education program during coffee hour after the service. I welcome you wherever you may be this morning, whether here in our sanctuary or attending virtually. We are one congregation worshiping together. So let's all wave to the folks at home from that camera. A very special welcome to those of you who are here for the first or second time or still feel like newcomers. We're glad to have you with us, and we look forward to getting to know you. If you're comfortable, please raise your hand so we can greet you after the service. Welcome. We are a congregation of seekers who have come from a variety of faith traditions, and we welcome all those of all ages, abilities, and identities who are searching for a spiritual home. Please plan to join us after the service for coffee and conversation. For those online, if you sign off after the service and return to the website, you will find the link for joining our small group chats. Whether here or online, you will find some friendly folks who can help you find answers to the questions you might have. Instead of lighting candles for joys and sorrows, we continue to honor the tradition of the Great South Bay congregation, and we will use pebbles that we can drop into the water over on the same table. At any time during the service, please feel free to come forward and place a pebble in the water. A kind word, a thoughtful act, like a pebble dropped in the water, sends ripples out into the world. Should you wish to make a promise, let go of one, remember someone, release a bit of pain, or otherwise mark some important event or occasion, please step to the table and quietly send your thoughts outward as you drop a pebble into the water, mingling with the ripples of your intention with the ripples of those in our community. At this time, please silence your cell phones so that we may be fully present in this time of worship. We enter into the sacred space of worship with the sounding of our morning bell. Janet Kazis Garrison will light our chalice this morning. Our chalice lighting words are a responsive reading, and you can find it in your order of service. I will read the words in plain type, and I invite you to join in on the words in bold print. This is called Love Remains at the Center by Eric Hepburn. We light this flame to remind us, as did the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as we grow and connect, mature and deepen.
Love remains the center.
When the light of truth burns all else away,
love remains.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's in my guitar. I'm on my way. I won't turn back. I am on my way. No, I won't turn back. I am on my way. I won't turn back. I am on my way. Oh God, I am on my way. I'll ask my brother.
I'll ask my brother.
Why don't you go with me?
To go with me.
I'll ask my mother.
I'll ask my mother.
Why don't you come with me?
To go with me.
I'll ask my sister.
I'll ask my sister.
Why don't you come with me?
To go with me.
I am on my way.
Glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way.
If he says no,
If he says no,
I'm gonna go anyhow.
I'll go anyhow.
If he says no,
If he says no,
yeah, I'm gonna go anyhow.
I'll go anyhow.
If he says no,
If he says no,
I'll go anyhow.
I'll go anyhow.
'Cause I am on my way.
Glory,
praise
hallelujah.
God, I'm on my way. If you can. If you won't go,
If you won't go,
please don't you hinder me.
don't hinder me.
If you won't go,
won't go,
please don't you hinder me.
Don't hinder me.
If you won't go,
If you won't go,
please don't you hinder me.
don't hinder me.
'Cause I am on my way. Oh, I'm on my way. Help us out. I'm on my way.
I'm on my way.
Oh, I won't turn back now.
I won't turn back.
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way.
Oh, I won't turn back.
I won't turn back.
I am on my way.
I'm on my way.
I won't turn back.
I won't turn back.
I am on my way.
Glory, hallelujah.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
This morning, we come together to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and his legacy, including all those who worked with him in the struggle for civil rights. In that spirit, our Racial Concerns Committee is honored to present a version of how we begin our monthly meetings. Not every meeting begins with a check-in, but the November meeting did, and it was engaging and informative. So, we decided that this morning, you, our congregation and friends, should have the opportunity to meet us through our check-in comments, where we share the work that we do as individuals or as a group. Work that we believe encompasses and reflects the Racial Concerns Committee's mission, our vision, and that honors the legacy of Martin Luther King. We hope what we say becomes an invitation for you to join our committee and support our activities. An upcoming activity for February 8th is the annual read-in of African American writers. Adults who participate in this special read-in will read aloud selected pages from Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message. Young participants are welcome to read original essays inspired by an African American writer or by an event in African American history.
If you were here for Christmas Eve, I'm sure you'll recognize our first hymn, which was recently composed by our own Lee Morris. The hymn is about the newly adopted UU values, but it certainly reflects the legacy of Dr. King, which is why we wanted to include it today. Because it is still new, Peter will play it all the way through once so you can hear how the music goes, and you have the music in your order of service, I believe. And so please rise, embody your spirit, and join in singing Centered in Love.
Good morning, all. I may be the luckiest person in this entire congregation because I get to listen to that trio rehearse at my house on Saturday. Sadly, I don't have Peter and Dee Dee also in the house, but you know. So the story today, I edited down as much as I could, but it's still running about 7 minutes, so bear with me, please. It's called Memphis, Martin, and the Mountaintop. And I'm just going to show you the cover. It's by Alice Faye Duncan, and I really recommend that you check it out at your library. It's a really great book. I chose this book because too often the kids tell me that the only thing they ever learn about Martin Luther King is the I Have a Dream speech. So I want them to know a lot more about his life and what he did. This is about the Memphis sanitation workers' strike. The conflict started in January, cold and wet with rain. Poor wages for black sanitation workers sparked grumblings of a labor strike. In stormy February, death made the grumblings swell to a loud, blasting rage. I know, I was there as clouds covered the Memphis sky. I had skipped outside to splash and play on the sidewalk in mud puddles. "Lorraine, Lorraine!" Mama called my name. I could feel it. Punishment was on the way. But when Daddy ran up to the porch, distressed and out of breath, Mama ignored my muddy shoes on her kitchen floor. Bad news traveled at lightning speed. 2 black men working in the rain never made it home for dinner. Eckel Cole and Robert Walker dumped garbage with my daddy. Several of the Memphis garbage trucks were old and unsafe, and according to my daddy, a packer blade malfunctioned, crushing his friends. Daddy told Mama, "It ain't right to die like that." I saw a new storm rising up. I saw it in their eyes. Memphis sanitation workers shared one common trait. They were black. They carried rusted garbage barrels, as slop dripped down their clothes. White managers called them ugly names, too ugly to repeat. The average pay at that time for sanitation workers was $1.70 an hour. And Daddy called it starvation pay, and my family had to rely on government benefits to get by. Sanitation workers formed a labor union to advocate for their rights, but Memphis Mayor Loeb said no to a pay increase. When they could take the abuse no more, 1,300 men deserted their garbage barrels. They organized a labor strike on February 12, 1968. And for 65 days, sanitation workers marched 14 blocks through the streets of downtown Memphis. My daddy marched in that number. The strike crippled garbage collection with terrific success. Replacement workers operated 38 garbage trucks, while a whopping 180 trucks stayed parked at the city barn. Sidewalks turned unsightly by the end of February. Loose paper with crushed cans, empty boxes, and food scraps littered the Memphis streets. Every night, Daddy drove his blue jalopy to jam-packed rallies where strikers sang freedom songs. Music lightened the heavy mood. As winter turned into spring, experienced union leaders flew into Memphis from Washington, D.C., and they spoke with the striking workers as advocates and strategists, but still nothing changed. The mayor railed no to every labor request, and my daddy and the others kept right on marching. In early March, strike negotiations failed again. But as Daddy's soles wore thin on his mountain climb, there came a spark of light. Good news filled the air. Reverend James Lawson, a local minister, called his old friend Martin to Memphis. Daddy buzzed around the house. "Dr. King is coming to town." The Memphis struggle was an economic fight. The men sought better wages to feed their families and to buy decent homes, not run-down shanties like our rented house. As public servants, sanitation workers deserved better pay to educate their children, and give them a future bright with hope. This was the message that Dr. King preached when he arrived in Memphis on March 18th. He said, "All labor has dignity." I listened with my parents from a crowded church pew as the famous leader drafted a plan to march in Memphis with the striking men. He set a date, Dr. King did, for March 22nd. But on March 22nd, yellow daffodils, 16 inches of snow. So Dr. King canceled the march. Now, I followed Dr. King during the nightly news on our black and white TV. He had set out to abolish poverty in the very same way he had raised his voice to abolish racial segregation. He wanted to strengthen labor laws for all Americans. And to make his dream come true, he planned a massive march in Washington, D.C. for the spring of 1968. He named his new crusade the Poor People's Campaign, which is still going today. As he traveled the nation to promote his plans, Dr. King drew national attention to the Memphis strike. When the strange snow cleared, Dr. King rescheduled his Memphis protest for March 28th. 6,000 people, blacks, whites, men, women, and children, gathered in downtown Memphis. Police stood guard with tear gas, billy clubs, and guns. 15 minutes into the march, there was a sound of breaking glass. Looters threw bricks and sticks up and down Beale Street. They shattered storefront windows as strikers and strike supporters scattered their way to safety. Police sprayed tear gas and beat guilty people. They beat innocent people, too. Blood spattered everywhere, and it was difficult to see. It was never proven, but rumors said militant teenagers started the Beale Street riot. As for the Memphis morning paper, it called Dr. King a coward because he ran from the violence and was carted away safely in a stranger's passing car. Major Loeb issued a state of emergency in response to the Beale Street riot, and he imposed a 7 p.m. curfew and called 4,000 National Guard soldiers. The soldiers restored the peace, but on the following day, the strike seemed to have no end. Dr. King was a dreamer, like many of us, and when the Memphis March turned into a riot, the disappointed leader left the city, but he promised to return. He promised to lead a peaceful march in support of the striking workers. And on April 3rd, 1968, he left his Atlanta home and boarded a flight to Memphis. At Mason Temple Church, Dr. King spoke. Like a man preaching his own funeral, Dr. King used vivid words to paint the story of his life. He described his challenges and triumphs during the civil rights movement, and in the face of death threats, he spoke boldly. He encouraged Memphis strikers and strike supporters to march, boycott, and raise their voices for worker rights until victory was won. His voice boomed. I may not get there with you to the mountaintop, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. April 3rd and 4th, Dr. King rested at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis. He spent his last hour on the second floor in room 306, talking with friends. They joked and laughed, like good friends do, and they spoke of plans for an evening rally. But as Dr. King stepped out onto the balcony, James Earl Ray fired a shot into his neck and killed him. News of Dr. King's assassination spread quickly in Washington, D.C., Chicago, Baltimore, and other places. Young people expressed their grief with looting and raging fires. Coretta Scott King flew to Memphis, committed to a plan. Dr. King had pledged to support the sanitation strike with a nonviolent march. Despite her broken heart, Mrs. King and members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference helped to keep her husband's pledge on April 8th. The memorial march served as a tribute to honor Dr. King's life, and it reminded the mayor that workers would strike and continue their upward climb until justice was received. The Memphis sanitation strike ended on April 16th, 1968, so 12 days later. President Johnson sent a top labor official to negotiate a settlement. So much was won, so much was lost, because freedom is never free. Amen. So now I'd like to ask my teachers, junior high, the middle school, and the preschool. So here's Melissa and Susan, preschool, for the K through 4, and Dan, hello, and Carrie. Whew, it's been a long weekend. Dan and Carrie for the junior high. So if everybody would follow the teachers back, that would be really great. And if you turn to the last page of your hymnal for the Reeb Children's Benediction, we will sing them out.
I invite us now into a quiet time, a time for spoken and silent contemplation. We will hear some words to begin, and then a bit of silence, and Peter and Dee Dee will call us out of silence with the song "We Shall Overcome," of which we will sing all 4 verses. We have come into each other's presence this day, seeking a part of ourselves, knowing that we do not live alone, and knowing that we cannot fully live if we are for ourselves alone. We gather in thanks for the life and ministry of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., not because we wish to worship him as a saint, but because we wish to embody his dream as a possibility that we make real. We gather with full knowledge of our shortcomings. Our lives set before us many tasks, and often we're not equal to them. We fall short of our own expectations. We find that we don't know enough, we're not always patient, we fall into anger, we cannot find the strength or we lack the vision, and we wait in vain for wisdom. It is painful to acknowledge shortcomings, and yet here we are. We are here. Not always perfect, not always wise, not always just, but wonderfully and mysteriously human and alive. We dedicate this time together to renewing our hope. May the stories we share give us courage. May the songs we sing give us hope. May the words we speak give us wisdom. And most of all, may the touch of hands, the sight of faces, the sound of voices lifted in song and affirmation restore in us faith that this world may be made whole and all its people one.
So, is it on? Okay, good. Let's begin our check-in. I'll get us started. I belong to BLARG, the Brookhaven Landfill and Remediation Group. Like this? After I retired from teaching and moved to a little house in Patchogue near the LIRR, which my husband and I were sure we'd be taking into the city to visit friends, museums, attend opera, theater, and jazz sets. I discovered there was a health hazard that the town of Brookhaven promised to address, but has yet to do so. There was a huge landfill adjacent to North Bellport. After we moved to Patchogue, I played outdoor tennis in the summer at the Bellport Golf and Tennis Club on South Country Road. No one there ever mentioned the landfill. But once I learned about the landfill, all the problems it was causing, and that it was scheduled to close in 2024, I began attending BLARG meetings on Zoom, where I learned how I could help maintain pressure on the Brookhaven Town Board to make sure they kept their promise to close the landfill. They did not close the landfill. The landfill issue in Brookhaven Town is an example of environmental racism. That is the practice of corporations offloading their industrial pollution on communities of color, which is why Black Americans are 75% more likely to live near a polluting facility than white Americans. I support BLARG by attending meetings on Zoom, appearing at demonstrations, testifying before the town board to express my concern, and offering financial support. It would be no surprise to Dr. King that poor people of color are the subjects of environmental racism. But he'd smile, no doubt, to learn how many people all over the United States know now that working with similar environmental groups benefits us, our children, and the entire web of existence of which we are a part. Next, we'll hear from Peg Espinola.
The Racial Concerns Committee of the UUFSB is the second such committee I have belonged to. The first was in Massachusetts at the UU church I attended for over 50 years before coming here 2.5 years ago. My Massachusetts committee read a lot on the history of racial injustice in this country and shared some of it with our congregation, but we took no action, really, other than participating in a Black Lives Matter rally in 2020 that took place on our doorstep. Incidentally, none of us was black. But the UUFSB's Racial Concerns Committee is different. First of all, we have a black chairperson, Barbara. She was one of the first people to reach out to me at my very first coffee hour in the summer of 2022. In the course of our conversation, she told me about the committee. I joined soon afterward and discovered that Barbara and others on the committee had many connections to people doing anti-racist work on Long Island. Through RCC, I became active in the Just Stop Unjust Stops campaign, now called the Cooper Project, which Karen Posey, in the form of Joanne Hammer, will tell you more about. But when I joined the board last June, I felt I had to resign from this wonderful program because of scheduling conflicts. Now my activism on behalf of RCC is channeled through a new organization, United Community Action Network of North Brookhaven and Smithtown, organized by our Deb Little, which meets here one Sunday a month. Representatives from other faith-based civic and social groups participate. Here's a quote from the group. Our mission is to stand with and support individuals and groups who experience bias-motivated activity in northern Brookhaven and Smithtown. We also offer learning opportunities that build skill sets for confronting bias and increasing civility and mutual respect. Our initial focus was on anti-trans bias, since almost as soon as we got started, we were confronted with virulent anti-trans posters hung up on town property in Smithtown. One of our members tore them down, and then we accompanied her to the Smithtown Town Council to support her in her discussion of the events with the council. We followed up with letters requesting the council to come out with a statement that hate is not welcome in the town, and that people of all gender identities are welcome. You can also help set up 2 educational meetings in Smithtown on the subject of gender fluidity. More recently, I attended, along with another UCAN member, a 2-hour meeting in Huntington aimed at creating a new rapid response network to prepare for the threatened onslaught of deportations of undocumented immigrants after the new administration takes office. Several friends from the Cooper Project were there, including Irma Solis, who heads up the Suffolk office of the New York Civil Liberties Union, and many other experienced civil rights activists. I learned that there are actually things we can do to protect immigrants from unconstitutional actions by police and ICE. There are also volunteer opportunities to help asylum seekers with their paperwork through an immigration clinic in Brentwood. At the very least, we can be in touch with our legislators at all levels of government and tell them what we want and don't want by way of legislation that affects immigrants. I was fortunate to be raised by parents who taught me about racial and other biases. They set an example for me by intervening in individual cases to help people who were not being treated fairly. But it took the civil rights struggles of the 60s, and particularly the speeches and example of Martin Luther King, for me to learn that when we come together to fight for change, that is when change is most likely to occur. And so for a few years in the late 1960s, I joined with others in the struggle for fair housing in Massachusetts. Since joining UUFSB's Racial Concerns Committee, I have discovered that there are things I can still do to fight bias and injustice and to help realize Martin Luther King's dreams, which have been and still are my dreams. Next up is Karen Posey, but since she's unable to be here today, Joanne Hammer will deliver her check-in.
Thank you. I began attending UUFSB in 2021 because of my interest in the Racial Concerns Committee's work for social justice. I had just finished reading Me and White Supremacy with a group called Elders Action Network, where we read and kept diaries of each of the chapters for 28 days. It was a revelation to me that I was born into a culture that fosters racism, and I was compelled to take action. As a member of our Racial Concerns Committee, I wanted to support a group that was working to address racism on Long Island. Peggy Fort and Peg Espinola were already part of this committee. Peggy Fort had been working with a group called United for Justice in Policing for many years, and I joined her in their efforts to stop Suffolk County Police from targeting Black and brown people during non-safety stops. I became a core member of this group as a representative for RCC. Our group was originally called Just Stop Unjust Stops, and recently we changed our name to the Cooper Project to broaden our appeal. We've been working diligently to educate the public about these unjust tactics, sharing information about traffic safety issues, and supporting legislation that will put an end to these egregious practices. We're also collecting stories about people who have been unfairly stopped. These stories are so important because they put a face to the problem and show the harmful psychological effect on people who have been stopped and the need for these practices to end. Peggy, June, would you share information on the state legislation you've been working on?
You can tell I'm not Peggy Fort, who is ill and can't be with us this morning. But I'm going to tell you about the legislation that she's been working on, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So the Racial Concerns Committee, as well as our UUFSB, have been supporting the efforts of the Cooper Project. Last year, our fellowship supported a proclamation that called out the racial disparities in traffic stops in Suffolk County. The Racial Concerns Committee, as part of the Cooper Project, has joined with groups throughout New York State to push for the passing of what is called the Just and Safe Traffic Enforcement Act, or Safety New York. Every day, New Yorkers throughout our state are stopped for low-level, non-safety traffic, bicycle, and pedestrian violations. National statistics show that there are racial disparities in who gets stopped and who gets searched. These stops do not enhance public safety or road safety. Instead, they cause harm to those who are stopped, particularly people of color, and sometimes the officers who stop them. So New Yorkers in Rochester, Albany, Utica, Binghamton, Long Island, Westchester, New York City, Brooklyn, and the Bronx, among other places, have formed a coalition to pass this state-level legislation. The lead facilitator of this effort is Empire Justice of Rochester. Safety New York has 7 sections and seeks to eliminate the racial disparities and to reallocate police resources in the following ways. First, it bars traffic stops for 24 minor non-safety related traffic infractions if there's no other legal basis to stop the motorist, cyclist, or pedestrian. The covered stops include equipment defects, for example, a single broken taillight, administrative issues, a missing or expired registration or inspection tag, and several other types of minor infractions, like failing to use the crosswalk properly or not having a bell on your bicycle. Such a change would free officers to engage in law enforcement that actually enhances community and road safety. Second, this legislation bars stops for minor warrants for failure to pay an outstanding fine or fee, or failure to appear in court for a violation-level offense. These warrants could be enforced in other ways, and stopping vehicles actually does not ensure that the person driving is the person with the warrant. This legislation also bars stops when the primary reason is race, creed, color, national origin, or another protected status under the human rights law. The legislation requires that in seeking consent to search a vehicle, an officer must advise the individual of their right to refuse a search, provide them a form in their native language setting forth the right to refuse the search, and have the driver sign the form. Following a traffic stop, any officer wearing a body-worn camera is required to activate the camera, and prior to a search of a person, property, or vehicle following a traffic stop, they must state the reason for this search. Furthermore, the law requires collection, analysis, and publication of data about traffic stops, including racial demographic data. The legislation also bars the use of drug detection canines on a stopped motor vehicle unless there is probable cause to believe the vehicle contains illegal narcotics other than cannabis, or that an occupant is in possession of illegal narcotics other than cannabis. And it also bars stops based on the odor of cannabis unless the stop is for an offense involving impaired driving. That's quite a lot, and this legislation will be introduced this month and is sponsored in the state Senate by Senator Holman Siegel of Manhattan and in the Assembly by Representative Chantel Jackson of the Bronx. Once introduced, this bill will go to the Transportation Committee for its review, and we will be calling on everyone and anyone who supports the Safety New York Act to lobby their representatives with phone calls and with visits.
It is our spiritual practice to share our plate with an organization working for a more just future. For the month of January, the social justice recipient is the Brookhaven branch of the NAACP. Its mission is to secure the political, educational, social, economic, and economic equality rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and to ensure the health and well-being of all persons. The NAACP's work for the 21st century focuses on economic sustainability, education, health, public safety, criminal justice, voting rights, political representation, and expanding youth and young adult engagement. They also seek legal redress for incidents of discrimination. As you know, dismantling racism is a key focus for Unitarian Universalism, so please give generously. You may make your gifts on the plate or online. For those online, the link is in the chat box. The offering will now gratefully be received.
I'm a living sunset, lightning in my bones. Push me to the edge, but my will is gone. I believe in a better way. Fools will be fools and wise will be wise, but I will look this world straight in the eye. 'Cause I believe in a better way. I believe in a better way. What good is a man who won't take a stand? What good is a cynic with no better plan? 'Cause I believe in a better way. I believe in a better way. Hope these words feel pleasant as they rest upon your ears. Hope these words sound pleasant as they rest upon your ears, upon your ears, upon your ears, upon your ears, upon your ears.
Reality is sharp, it cuts at me like a knife. Everyone I know is in the fight of their lives, and I believe in a better way. Yeah, I believe in a better way.
Take your face out of your hands and clear your eyes. You have a right to your dreams and don't be denied. I believe in a better way. Yeah, I believe in a better way.
We take a moment to acknowledge the pebbles that have been placed in the water, creating ripples. May the ripples carry our shared joys and sorrows and remind us that we are connected and we hold each other in love and in support. We will resume our check-in with longtime RCC member Joel Diamond.
Hi, everybody. I want to repeat Barbara Coley's invitation that fellowship members check out our Racial Concerns Committee meetings. It's the third Sundays right after services. In my case, I'm just going to let you know the kinds of wonderful opportunities I've had to do things that are in line with Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King's work. I don't see her now. She's usually here in her wheelchair. One thing I'm still doing, I have a, I'm talking about Janet Hansen. She used to run the at the very beginning of Long Island Housing Services, anti-housing discrimination agency. I work there part-time, thanks to her legacy. I know she's still going. When Doris Diamond, sitting over there, invented the idea of multicultural solidarity back in 2016, it was immediately synced in with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's idea of the beloved community. We modeled the beloved community, our diversity, friendship, and conversation circles. Now they're mostly on Zoom, but they're best in people's houses and backyards. These circles serve to interrupt the racist social structure of separation. You may have heard me quote this study that showed 75% of white people don't have a single non-white friend, and that 65% of black people in this survey rely entirely on black friends. The figure for Hispanic people was 50%. They didn't interview any other groups. So we reach out for diversity. Our board is about 80% BIPOC. Our program participants are mostly black and white, with good representation of everyone else. Most of our facilitators are BIPOC. Because our discussion topics are race-related, we are automatically not into white fragility. We talk about race, or also other vital stuff, misogyny, but mostly that. And I can't wait till we get back to multicultural solidarity meeting in people's houses and backyards. We meet in black and white neighborhoods. Sometimes we've met on Shinnecock land. I think soon we're going to be, I just met with Stalcott tribal members. I think we'll be meeting in their homes here in Setauket area soon. And we've also do allyship and advocacy and social justice activism, all part of the beloved community. The NAACP is something that Multicultural Solidarity got involved with in our beginning. In our first year, the Brookhaven chapter was not existent. It had gone into inactivity, and in order to be recertified by national NAACP, had to get a certain minimum number of new members. 100, I think it was. So we recruited, and we got a significant, I think we got 35, maybe 38. And it so impressed the New York City Regional Office of National Advancement, NAACP, that they recertified them early without even waiting for formal things, and that was great. And that's been my chapter. Meantime, the ISLIP chapter of NAACP is honoring Multicultural Solidarity next week at some fancy place, and that it's great to be of service. I think Multicultural Solidarity has about 1,000 followers, if you count newsletter subscribers and people who come to the programs and people on the Facebook page. It's up to a little over 1,000. A few days ago, I attended, I'm changing the topic to SURG, S-U-R-G, Stand Up for Racial Justice. Has anyone heard of them? Well, that's great. This is a group organizing white people to be active allies, not just armchair. And there was a Zoom last week with Angela Davis was the speaker. Well, that attracted 5,000 people just to a Zoom. I never was on such a big Zoom. So I'm proud that, happy really is the right word, that I'm going to be hooking up with them. I hope other people look into SURJ, S-U-R-J, and Multicultural Solidarity and Racial Concerns Committee. And thank you very much for my time. And now we would like to turn the mic over to Luann Reed.
Brindy, it's okay. Hi, I've been attending here for about 2.5 years, and it is I am pleased to be a part of the Racial Concerns Committee with people that are working for social justice. And each of the members are involved with community concerns, such as BLARG and UCAN, Just Stop campaign, and Multicultural Solidarity, and United for Justice in Policing. I've not only been inspired, but my conscience has been raised to the ongoing treatment and the environmental racism right here on Long Island. I've come to be more aware of what my neighbor suffers daily, weekly, monthly, year after year. I'm becoming an advocate when and where I can for these issues. I find myself hopefully growing into being more of a humanitarian the longer that I'm here. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The time is always right to do the right thing." I know now more assuredly that the right thing to do is whatever I can. It may be a phone call, maybe a letter, maybe signing a petition, demonstrating, or contributing financially. I'm glad that my heart is growing to wanting to do more than I am. I love how the UUFSB shares its plate with organizations that are working hard for a more just world. I'm committed to asking myself frequently what Martin Luther King Jr. said, called the most persistent and urgent question: what am I doing for others? I would be introducing Joan Kiley, but she's not here today, and instead Joan is going to impersonate her.
Yeah, I'm not Joan, but I am going to tell you a little bit about what Joan's been doing. So Joan joined the Racial Concerns Committee to learn things to which she had formerly been oblivious, and ways that she could make things better for everyone. And she does feel that she's learned a great deal. So since joining the committee, she, sees events and news with new eyes, and realized that when things seem unfair, that she actually has a voice that she can use to discuss that. And having been inspired by other members with their work in different local organizations and their enthusiasm and commitment to UU principles, Joan has been doing a lot of work with the League of Women Voters. She does voter registration for new citizens at their naturalization ceremonies. I also work with the League of Women Voters at their naturalization ceremonies, and it is a very emotional event. It's taking part in somebody's really big day, and hearing their stories and hopes for their life in this country. So she feels proud to help and feel the excitement of that, because it reminds her how rare and precious freedom is. Joan also does voter education and registration at community events, such as the Brookhaven Juneteenth celebration, and in schools. So that enables her to get to know people, young and old, who live nearby but have not been part of her circle. It helps to hear other perspectives and other priorities and be recognized as a fellow traveler on the way. So she's still looking for her niche, but happy to have the support and the good fellowship of the Racial Concerns Committee. And our final check-in this morning is John Razoulis.
Hi, I'm John Razoulis, and I want to discuss what I experienced at a peace rally that was somewhat in opposition to Trump's candidacy in late October of this year, 2024. I was protesting, and I had been with this peace group for a good amount of time, and I let my anger get the best of me at the rally. These rallies tend to get kind of heated, but most people do try to be peaceful. But again, I shouted loudly, cursing, giving the other side the bird, the middle finger. I thought about my actions later that day and decided to apologize to the pro-Trump people the next day. I actually personally went down to the Trump headquarters that was sponsoring the rally in person, and I went to a super manager there, and I had mentioned my behavior, and I apologized to them in person for it, and the people there were actually very friendly to me, very receptive. And I said, we do definitely have opposite political views, or our views may not always line up, but there's always a way to talk about things in a civil way, like to resort to anger. That's not the way to do it, and it's not the way Martin Luther King, did things either. I thought about what Martin Luther King stood for, and he always stood his ground, but never cursed out the other side. He was never one to give people the bird. Just wasn't him. He was a gentleman, but he was tough. He stood his ground. And he has proof that we can disagree on issues in a very major way and still have a civilized conversation with the opposing side and ultimately triumph over adversity.
Thank you.
Our final hymn this morning is number 121, We'll Build a Land, in the gray hymnal, number 121. Please stand in body or spirit.
Good morning. I'm John Morris. I'm also a member of the Racial Concerns Committee, and I'm going to share some closing words. These are the words of Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson, who I think many of us know because she preached here in the fall a few times. She's a UU minister at the Congregation of the South Fork in Bridgehampton. And these words of hers were inspired by poet June Jordan's 1978 poem for South African women, in which the words encourage us to see ourselves as capable of taking action and changing the world, not just waiting for somebody else to do something. Fitted for this day. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We're not perfect, but we're perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we have been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for.
As we sound the bell this afternoon, we finish off the responsive reading we began with. So this is also in your order of service. I'll read the words in plain type and invite you to read the bold. We extinguish this flame to remind us, love is the center. As we explore and rest, engage and heal, love remains the center. When all we can see is cold ashes, love remains.
Let us turn our thoughts today to Martin Luther King and recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth, ties of hope and love, of sister and brotherhood. That we are bound together in our desire to see the world become a place in which our children can grow free and strong. And we are bound together by the task that stands before us and the road that lies ahead. We are bound, and we are bound. There is a feeling like the clenching of a fist. There is a hunger in the center of the chest. There is a passage through the darkness and the mist. And though the body sleeps, the heart will never rest. Shed a little light. Oh, Lord, so that we can see. Oh, now, just a little light. Oh, just a little light, my friend. Wanna stand it on up, get it on up, stand it on up, pass it along, yeah. Wanna walk it on down, get a little light, oh Lord. Can't get no light from a dollar bill, yeah. Don't give me no light from a TV screen, no, 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 no. When I open my eyes, I wanna drink my fill from the well on the hill. Oh, and I know, you know what I mean. Shed a little light, shed a little light, oh Lord, so that we can see. Oh, now, just a little light, oh, just a little light, my friend. Wanna send it on up, stand it on up. Get it on up, pass it along, walk it on down. Gotta shed a little light. There is a feeling like the clenching of a fist, and there's a hunger in the center of the chest. yes. There is a passage through the darkness and the mist. And though the body sleeps, the heart will never rest. Let us turn our hearts today to Martin Luther King.